If you remember a while back, I had done a video talking about Vinovest and how I had wanted to diversify my investments to be a little bit more into wine investing. I had told myself that I had wanted to put a minimum of 1,000 a month over the next 6 months into wine investing. And the reason being was obviously for the purpose of diversifying. Now, typically wealthy people like to enjoy wine, and especially during periods of inflation, goods like wine will, of course, increase in value. And so basically the purpose of investing in it is to obviously gain appreciation on the bottles that I've invested in. Now, I really don't know too much about wine when I first started thinking about this. That was basically the goal. Of course, living here in the city, there's been plenty of times where I've gone out and of course paid for wine, but really not understanding, the fine nuances of all the different types of wines that are made. But what I did understand was, one, I wanted to be diversified. Two, moving forward, I had foreseen and of course seen from the past that of course wine will appreciate and of course increase in its value. And so looking back, this is just basically my 3-month portfolio update. And so I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. I started this portfolio here back in June 3rd, I believe. And so the goal is to put in, 1,000 a month over, till the end of the year. So we'll get roughly, the goal is a minimum of 6,000. I will more than likely continue to invest in this app. It's called Vinovest, and they basically specialize in investing in wine. The company holds most of the bottles, actually all of the bottles that I hold currently. As you can see right here, I've got 24 different bottles. All of this is held in the UK. And so it does give me a little bit of diversity from actually holding any sort of assets here in America. And of course, because wine can appreciate in value, I'm not drinking it. If I was drinking the wine, that would be a waste of money. But because it increases in value and then I can sell those bottles, it then becomes an asset. And so this is something that I had wanted to discuss again. As you can see, currently, the profits or the estimated appreciation have fluctuated. I think my portfolio has been up as much as around 370, but of course it does fluctuate as prices fluctuate. Now it does show all the different bottles here that I do own, and of course I've only fully invested just a little under 2,700. I still have about 780 in capital, and of course I'll be adding more money so that I can buy more bottles. And it shows down here how much the wine has appreciated or depreciated, right? If you've taken a temporary, I shouldn't say a temporary loss, but if the price has gone down, it shows it right here. Now the reason being is an article here. This was an article that was posted in October of 2020, and it talked about COVID proofing your portfolio with fine wine investment. It says, as the COVID pandemic rages on and on, it says many investors are clinging to their stocks and hoping for the best. It's basically like that guy in the Rocky movies. And it goes on to say, it says, what you might not know is that many of the biggest names in investment are turning to a little known alternative investment with a huge potential. All right, so some people look at alternate forms of investing, whether it might be real estate, cryptocurrencies. Some people maybe like commodities. Of course, wine is a commodity. Because typically, as you'll see here, typically it's the wealthy who like to enjoy many of these finer things. And a lot of times the normies kind of get a taste of that wealthier lifestyle. And then the average person, of course, will want to partake in it too. Now, for individuals who are interested in this stuff, this is, obviously I'm investing for the capital appreciation so that in the future I can consume more than just choosing to take that money and then of course utilize it for consumption. Now, this is part of taking responsibility for your financial future. Now, one of the Bible scriptures that I often do like is the one talked about in Ecclesiastes. And so even the Bible teaches about diversification, the value of being diversified. And in the book of Ecclesiastes in chapter 11, and chapter 11 and verse 6. Now, Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon. And of course, King Solomon was very much knowledgeable about the finer things in life. He was literally, including for inflation, the wealthiest man who has ever existed. King Solomon was the wealthiest man who had ever existed. He had maidservants, he had male servants, he had people who played the harp for him, etc. He had women, he had his fair share of women. I believe the Bible said he had 300 wives and 700 concubines. So he basically, as they say, he lived the high life. And so what was the advice of King Solomon? In verse 6, he says, "Sow your seed in the morning and do not rest your hands in the evening, for you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that, or if both will equally prosper." And so it really goes to show, especially as men, that the Bible, and of course King Solomon under inspiration, had given the advice that from morning until dawn, from that you should continue to be diligent in your work. As it says, sow your seed in the morning and do not rest your hands in the evening, showing basically that you were working all day. And that basically is a 12-hour day. You're taking advantage of all of the daylight in essence. And it's basically for the purpose of maximizing your returns and of course being diversified, as he has said that you don't know whether maybe what you sown in the morning will be fruitful and maybe what happened in the evening might not, or maybe what you sowed in the morning might not be fruitful. But since you've been diligent and you've sown also into the evening, now you're being able to reap. And he had said, or whether both, right? Everything in essence that your hand does, you will find success. And so that's one of the reasons why I have chosen to go this route, even though I am well invested into the stock market. And then of course I will be investing into real estate this year. Later on at the end of the year, I recently got another contract as a nurse, but I'll be going out into Florida and basically moving about different regions of the country, taking advantage of the extra crisis pay. So the article goes on to say, if you had invested 100 in fine wine market in 1952, your investment would now be worth $420,000. On the other hand, $100 invested in the stock market would now be worth a modest $100,000. This is recent research has shown that thanks to the impressive track record, the majority of financial advisors would support investing in fine wine as a way to diversify clients' portfolio. So if you are, of course, interested in taking a look at opening an account with Vinovest, I'll leave my the link here that you can utilize. Of course, it does benefit me. The only thing you really get is you get a waiver of the fees for a couple of months. It's not like get free stock like in some of these other platforms. And so this was something that I had want to touch on. It's basically just a 3-month update. We'll be doing another one of these month by month. Just so people can see. Of course, I've set my portfolio to aggressive investing, and like I said, the goal is to put in a minimum of $1,000 a month over at least the next 6 months. This is basically an experiment. I'm only investing money that I'm willing to lose, which is what I do recommend. If you are investing, no matter what you're investing in, you should be investing money that you're willing to lose.